To Creator Weekly Live for June 9th, 2024. I'm Peggy Kay, and today there are updates for YouTube for a new-ish social media platform that's designed by artists and for artists. There's been a lot of discussion about the new updated Adobe Terms of Service, and there are a lot of smaller updates across social media that hopefully I'll have time to get to. If I don't have time to talk about all of this week's updates, you can find all the information and links either on my blog post, there's a link in the description, or you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter at peggyktc.beehive.com. There is a link on the screen, and it comes to your email inbox every Saturday. It's free. You should sign up. There's also a link to that in the video description. All right, so let me get started. This week, the first update I wanted to talk about is for YouTube, and it's a relatively small update where they are expanding the availability to post community posts to more YouTube channels. Previously, there were requirements. So initially, you had to have a minimum number of subscribers. Then last year, the main requirement became that you had access to advanced features. That's something you can check in your YouTube Studio on desktop. But getting advanced features requires that your channel either have a certain amount of history to it and be in good standing, or you have to verify with a video or your ID. It's some work. Now, the requirement is basically you have your channel and you do not have a supervised account. Supervised accounts are for kids under the age of 13, where parent supervises and they're not old enough to have their own account, or if the channel is made for kids. If your audience is set to made for kids, you can see your community tab and no one else can. You can't create new posts, but you won't lose your past posts. So that's the first update, where this just makes it easier for more people to have posts. And I'll remind everyone that recently YouTube also implemented a posts feed in the mobile app where you can actually see a feed of just posts, mostly people who you subscribe to, and of course, other posts YouTube thinks you'd be interested in seeing. You should check that out. I've got a tutorial. I will link that later. So just a couple more updates. The second update I wanted to talk about is one where YouTube is testing out a new AI-powered inspiration tool. I have a tutorial. You can check that out on my channel, but just to give you an overview, if you go into YouTube Studio, there used to be a research tab. Now there is an inspiration tab. Click the inspiration tab on desktop. I don't think this is available on mobile yet. Click that on desktop and enter the kind of thing that you're interested in, the topic you're interested in, and YouTube will not only do a search for comparable videos, but you will also see how much interest your audience has in the topics, and you will see a colorful button for YouTube to create an outline. What it does is it generates a potential outline for a video on that topic. Now you can then copy that outline and paste it into Google Docs or your favorite word processor and use that as a basis to create a new video. And the advantage of this is that YouTube is making these suggestions based on the YouTube platform and your audience. It also has other topics that may be related. I think it's actually potentially very useful because, you know, one of the things that is difficult about these, whoops, I didn't mean to have that on screen. One of the things that's useful about having an AI tool built into YouTube is that you're getting very specific suggestions based on your audience. So check out your YouTube Studio Analytics Inspiration tab to see if you have access. It's an experimental feature. It is not available in Europe or in India, I don't believe. Hopefully it will come to them eventually, and give it a try. I want to say hi to everybody who's in the live chat today. I see Jolyn and Craig and Braylon. Welcome. I'm glad to see you here. I'd love to know what you think about this week's updates. So the next thing that I wanted to mention about this week's updates are a couple things that YouTube is trying out. YouTube is testing, that's a lot of text on the screen, but YouTube is basically testing comment topics summarized by AI for shorts. So if you use YouTube on mobile, I think it's just mobile, I'm not sure if it's available on desktop. If you go on a long video, if it has a lot of comments, it may have a topics button at the top of the comments section, and it will actually organize the comments based on the topic. So it kind of gives you an idea what people are talking about, and you can jump to specific topics. They're testing this out on shorts as well. It will be in English to start out with, and it's only available for shorts that have a lot of comments. So if you're in this test, be sure to give YouTube your feedback. The other thing I wanted to talk about very briefly is that YouTube is also showing breakout videos on the inspiration tab, and I'm just going to read exactly what they said. These are videos from similar channels that have performed exceedingly well. The goal is to give creators more holistic understanding of channels similar to them and what content is resonating with their audience. So again, YouTube is giving inspiration suggestions based on what people are actually watching. I want to say hi to Diego. Diego says, the live is black. I can only hear Peggy. Is it just me? I see Craig and Jolyn says they can see it. I don't know why that would be happening, Diego. I see other folks are saying that they can see the video stream, so I don't think it's a problem on my end, but I hope you get it sorted out. So those were the YouTube updates for this week. And I wanted to switch gears just a little bit and talk about a new-ish platform. Now, one of these things that has been discussed a lot lately is that Instagram, basically all the big platforms are looking to make some money, and they license their content for training AI. And this is not true on Instagram. They're not licensing it because Meta has their own AI. So if you post to almost anywhere in public, your content, your photography, your artwork may be used for AI training, and especially if you're popular, that means people are going to try and generate images in your style, and it actually takes away from the artist. Um, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Cara. And this is a platform created by Jingna Zhang. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly. I hope that's correct. Jingna Zhang is a photographer. She does fashion photography and portraits and has been a strong advocate for her own work, not being used for AI because she found it, for example, in Midjourney, where people can generate images in her style, even including her actual likeness, which is kind of creepy. And she was in a big court case where there was an art contest, and the person who won the contest basically took one of her photographs and just painted that. So there was a big court case, and she won, where this is plagiarism of her original content. So this is obviously something that's very important to her. She helped found this new social media and portfolio platform called Cara. Now, Cara has a very strong stance against AI. It does not allow AI generated content, and it actually gives people access to a new algorithm thing. I think it's called Nightshade, where you basically run your images through it, and then it looks normal to people, but to AI, it looks different than what people see. It's really, I don't understand the actual science behind it, but it works where if AI trains on this content, the output is not what you would expect. So it's at, and this option is built in to Cara. So it's very much anti-AI. And this is a passion project. I'll notice here Jingna Zhang's profile there, where she says she's been funding this out of her own pocket. So it's her funding this and a team of volunteers running this platform. And what happened is that people are getting fed up. Artists are getting fed up. There's a lot of changes over on Meta, for example, and they just flooded to Cara this past week or so. It's gone sort of viral. So they went from having, what is it, 40,000 users to 650,000 users in the course of a week, which is a massive, massive update. So here's the problem, of course. Here you have this little platform, lots and lots of images, because it's for artists, and they have a huge flood of new users. The site was crashing. The founder had a flood of new posts, and she didn't see a message from her hosting provider that her monthly server bill increased by $96,000. I mean, she was already talking about it being a problem when it was $2,000. So you can imagine what an extra $96,000 does. This was obviously a shock, and this is something I think that we don't talk about enough for platforms that are not selling your data, that are not running ads, that don't charge a subscription fee. Even if it's run completely by volunteers, it still costs money to host, and it's super expensive. So I hope they figure out a way to do it. They set up a buy me a coffee donation link, which seems totally inadequate for this amount of money. I think they're going to have to figure out something, some way for people to subscribe, even if it's like just a donation level, a pro level. I don't know what they're going to do. But there's a serious pent-up demand from artists and photographers for a platform that is dedicated to them and says explicitly, look, we're not going to allow AI training on your content. We're not going to allow AI generated content. So we'll see where this goes. I'm kind of rooting for them because I think more options are better. Diego says, Cara is very interesting. I also tried Midjourney and my antivirus and browser software blocked the site as suspicious. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. There's probably a bunch of scripts running on it. And this is a battle that's going to be ongoing. It does not help that prominent people, the CEO of Spotify, basically made a statement this week, oh, creating content is now free. No, it's not really free. Even if you use a generative AI, the generative AI was based on all of these artists' hard work. And to say, oh, now, you don't need to pay anybody is obviously not going to make people happy. So I think if you are an artist or a photographer, you may want to check out Cara and, throw them a few dollars. So hopefully they can keep their platform running. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is the new terms of service from Adobe. And I'm going to just share a tab with the sort of discussion people are having online. Whoops, that's not what I meant to show. All right. This is from Threads, where basically people are really concerned about Adobe's new terms of service. Not clear to me what's happening here because the terms of service are dated February, which was several months ago, but it may be that Adobe has started reminding people to accept the terms, which is why it's being discussed. And what people are concerned with on Adobe's terms of use is that they said they may access your content through both automated and manual methods, such as for content review. Now, part of the confusion here, and this is all on Adobe, is that Adobe has a whole bunch of different products, right? You can install Photoshop on your computer and use it there. It still talks to Adobe, though, with the current subscription model. And there's Adobe Stock, where people upload their images. Adobe has cloud storage, so you can store your various works in the cloud so you can access them anywhere. And all of those require different sorts of licenses from the user to Adobe. Adobe needs to be able to access your content and show your content and share your content if you're posting somewhere and expect it to be seen publicly. They also say that they are checking content on their servers for illegal or abusive content. So like child sexual exploitation, of course. They are checking that. And so those sorts of things may be reviewed. But the bottom line is people don't trust Adobe. They say that their AI model is not as exploitive as other AI models because it's based on licensed content, but some of that is from Adobe Stock, where people didn't realize that's what their content was licensed for. And on Adobe Stock, there are AI-generated images and the style of other people's work. And it just seems like Adobe is going all in on AI without really thinking about the artists. And some people are concerned, and I think this is legitimate, where they are using Adobe's tools, which are the industry standard, to work on projects that might be under NDA or otherwise can't be shared. So it's a concern that Adobe says that they can access this. Now, Adobe had to post a clarification on their terms of use. That's always a bad sign. But I'm not sure it clarifies things. So they show what was updated, and they say access is needed for Adobe applications and services to perform the functions they're designed for and used, such as opening and editing files or creating thumbnails or a preview. Access is needed to deliver some of the more innovative cloud-based features, such as Photoshop neural filters, liquid mode or remove background. And for content processed or stored on Adobe servers, Adobe may use technologies and other processes, including human review, to screen for certain types of illegal or abusive content. They say very clearly that they do not train Firefly generative AI models on customer content, and Adobe will never assume ownership of a customer's work. So those were 2 points of confusion, but I think that there's still a point of concern here, because if you go into Adobe's terms, you can opt out of having your content used for generative AI training. That is in the privacy settings in your Adobe account. But, big but, when does the opt-out not apply? This is from Adobe's own content analysis fact. And I'll mention that when you opt out, it's not like, oh, opt out of AI training. You're opting out of content analysis. It's a little bit broader. It says that there are some exceptions. You opt out, but if you're in the Adobe Photoshop Improvement Program, that is a program specifically to help them improve machine learning features. So obviously they need to access those images that you share. Adobe Stock, if you submit content to Adobe Stock, it may be used for machine learning. And I think the more important things is that it says, if you use features that rely on content analysis techniques, for example, content-aware fill in Photoshop, your content may still be analyzed when you use those features to help improve that feature. Now, I think that's interesting wording, where it's not just that they need to analyze your content to use that feature, because of course they do. If you're doing a content-aware fill, the software needs to be able to analyze the content, but it says it's used to improve that feature too. What does that mean exactly? That's not clear. And I think the bottom line is people don't trust Adobe. So again, this is developing, and it's part of the whole atmosphere right now where artists and other creatives simply don't trust the big companies. The other thing I wanted to talk about just a little bit is something near and dear to my heart, is getting federation across different social media. And what federation is, it's like how you can have a Gmail account and you can still communicate with someone who has a Yahoo email account. They talk to each other because they use the same protocols. And the idea is that social media would use the same protocols as well. There is a new open source tool called Bridgy Fed. And what Bridgy Fed does is make a bridge between Bluesky and Mastodon. So Mastodon uses ActivityPub for federation, as do a number of other platforms. Bluesky has its own protocols that it uses for federation. And this tool allows them to talk to each other. And so the idea is you can have a Mastodon account and someone on Bluesky can follow your content and vice versa. Now, the neat thing about this, and I think this is how you can think about it as being maybe a bigger, more important tool, is that you can post something on Threads. This is linked to, this is on Threads. The idea is that you post on Threads, or if you post on Instagram, you can automatically share your posts, share the same content to post to Threads. So you can double post to Threads. And Instagram, this person snarfed, posted to Threads, and it went through this Bridgy fed. So Threads allows you to enable ActivityPub, where someone on Mastodon can follow your Threads account. This person then used this bridging tool to bridge from that Mastodon post over to Bluesky. So they posted on Threads, and that can be followed on Bluesky. It's kind of convoluted right now, but I think that it shows the potential where you can have a social media account on your favorite platform, and instead of it being sort of a walled garden, people can follow you from whatever their favorite social network is. So people have accounts on their favorite social platform. They can follow people on other social platforms. I think that this has the potential to be really big, and talking about how you don't have to worry about your X audience or your Instagram audience or your Threads audience, where your audience can be everywhere. So that's my passion tool. I'm hoping this actually takes off. I want to say hi again to everyone who's joined the discussion. Craig says Peggy enjoys helping others. I do. I see Chef is here. Hey, Chef. Hey, Diego. It's great to see you guys. I want to know, do any of you use Bluesky or Mastodon? I have accounts everywhere. It's kind of not really sustainable to have multiple social media accounts, which is part of the reason why I like the idea of federation so much. And I will note that I have been mostly active on Threads lately. X is just not doing it for me, and the owner of Threads is promoting terrible content, and I'd like to move on, but there's still people over on X that I like to follow, so it's a struggle. Just a few other small things. Google has a product called NotebookLM. They have some updates for that. The idea is that you join the notebook, you create a notebook, you upload your own content, and then the AI tool inside NotebookLM gives you overviews and study guides and so forth based on this notebook of content that you provided. So it's very, very personalized. And the latest updates, it now supports adding Google Slides and web URLs as sources, along with Google Docs, PDFs, and text files. And they have it now where if it generates a summary and there's an inline citation, it takes you directly to the supporting passage in the source. So you can easily fact check the AI response. This is really, again, much more useful, I think, than having a generic generative AI tool that's kind of based on everything and gives you incorrect information. So if you're interested in trying this, I think it's pretty broadly launched. It's notebooklm.google. No .com at the end, just NotebookLM.google and give it a try. The other thing I will mention really briefly is that there is a new feature for Google Chat. If you're in the Google ecosystem like I am, Google Chat has an option for request to join. So the idea is if you share a link to a space in Google Chat, people will be able to then ask to join if they click the link. So if they click the link, they don't join the space directly, they ask to join. I think this is really something useful if you want to have a space for more people. I will mention, though, that if you're using a regular Google Workspace account, you can only have people ask to join if they're inside your organization. But this post says explicitly this is also available for Google Workspace individual subscription. This is not a just a free personal account. This is a subscription on top of your free personal Google account. But if you have Google Workspace individual, you should be able to do this to create a space where you can share a link to the space and people can ask to join. Diego says he loves this new feature. It's essentially like asking for access to a Google document. Yeah. So if you use Google Docs, Google Drive, and someone shares a link with you and you don't have access, you can then ask for access. It's probably managed in a similar way, I would bet. For example, all of that access in Google Drive and Google Docs can also be managed through Google Groups. And for Google Workspace accounts, there is the option to manage spaces through Google Groups as well. So that is a pretty useful tool. Now, there were some more updates for Instagram and X and so forth. I recommend checking out this week's newsletter or blog post so you can get all of this week's updates. That's all I'm going to talk about this week. Thank you so much for joining me live. I will see you next Sunday.